Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you haven't already, please use the chat box to let us know where you're from, what organization you're working for, and your job title. Welcome to April's Northern Tier PA Career Link Employer Workshop. I'm Ashley Frost, and I will be hosting this meeting. Before we get started, please mute your microphone and turn off your cameras if you haven't done so already. This workshop is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please leave the meeting at this time. The recording will be sent to all participants as well as posted on the Bradford, Sullivan, and Tioga County's PA Career Link YouTube pages. Please keep questions until the end of the presentation, or you can utilize the chat box feature to enter any questions. Our facilitator for this workshop is Mr. Alan Robinson, the Shared Work Program Outreach Coordinator. Welcome, Alan, and thank you for taking the time to educate us about this program.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for attending. This is part of our outreach program on shared work. We have a little bit about why we're doing this. We received a grant from the U.S. Department of Labor several years ago to talk about this program, and it's become a vital program to assist employers during this time of COVID. We've had a large number of employers that are now participating in the program. At one point, we had over 200 employers involved. We're down to about 65 employers, and we have about 150 plans that we're working with right now. And an employer can have more than one plan. We'll talk about that as we move forward. So we thank you for that. So let me get started, and we'll move right along. So Shared Work is an unemployment compensation program. And what it allows the employer to do is to temporarily reduce the work hours of a group of employees as an alternative to laying them off. And then the employees that are covered by a plan that the employer submits to the department receive a percentage of their UC weekly benefit amount while they work that reduced schedule. What it's designed to do is to keep your permanent employees working rather than laying off, let's say, the least senior. Even in this environment, we're finding that employees are finding other jobs, and the result is you go to recall those employees you may have laid off, and you find them, they're just not around. And so that's one of the reasons for this program, and it keeps those people working. So what are the program requirements? Well, you have to have 2 participating employees. That's because we are sharing work. So we share work among 2 people, at minimum 2 people. And that's without regard to corporate officers. Corporate officers are not eligible to participate under the program. There is a reduction percentage. The law states that it must be between 20 to 40% of the normal work week. And that's and so as we reduce the hours, we're also reducing the wages for those employees. If you're going to have a plan and there's a collective bargaining agreement, the collective bargaining representative has to approve the agreement, the shared work plan agreement. If they do not, we automatically have to disallow them because that's a section in the unemployment law that is required. Again, fringe benefits may not be affected under the program. So if you've got a retired, if you have retirement, you're paying into the 401k, you have to continue to do that. If the company has healthcare benefits, the company's healthcare benefits have to continue as if the employees were working full time. We had a case during this last few months where when the employees' hours went below a percentage, went down to 30%, the employees were found not to be working the required percentage, and the healthcare company required the employees then to pay into their health care benefits. We immediately terminated that shared work plan because the health care benefits could not be affected at all by the by them participating in shared work. And the employer cannot be, a plan can be no longer than 52 consecutive weeks. In other words, a 52-week period for us is considered a calendar year, and they cannot participate for no more than 104 out of 156-week period. Folks, I'm sorry, there's someone at the door here. I'm going to have to walk away for just a minute. Forgive me. Thank you. Forgive me, the joys of working from home. We're having some insect problems at the house, and I'm working from home today. I'm the only one here. Okay, so getting back, so the employer cannot be involved for more than a plan can't go more than 52 weeks and cannot be more than 104 weeks out of 156 week period. So what happens is the employer can have 2 shared work plans, and then they have to sit out for a period of 52 weeks. That's what the rule is basically about. The qualifications to participate are fairly straightforward. They have to have all their tax reports filed and all their amounts paid due under the unemployment law. In other words, if they can't owe unemployment compensation any money, and they have to be timely on their quarterly tax reports. They have to have a positive reserve account balance for contributory employers. Contributory employer is most businesses. So that's what that is. The third, they have to have paid wages for 12 consecutive quarters. In other words, they have to be in business for 3 years. That's the requirements under the law for participation. So what are the advantages? Well, you keep your full-time staff. That way, when business picks up again, you have your employees. You know who they are. They're busy. They're working. They know their job. It reduces future hiring and retraining costs because you have your employees. You know who they are. You can handle them, and they know what their job is, and they know how to do it. You keep their loyal employees. Your employees even if they're working less hours, they know that they're cared about. And we found that has been one of the positive effects of this program. Because they're working, they may not be working as much. The employees, their productivity stays high because they know how to do their job. They're doing their job, and then you don't have to worry about retraining them. And then it protects the employees from the hardship of a full layoff. Nobody likes to be laid off. And if they're laid off, then the result is they're going to go look for work elsewhere. You're going to try to call them back, and guess what happens? They're not there. And that keeps the morale of the company high because I've been through a layoff. We had some unemployment compensation layoffs when we had some funding issues several years ago. Nothing is worse than going to work the next day and finding the guy that you worked to for years and years is no longer there and won't be for a long period of time. Okay, so how does shared work plan? Well, a shared work plan applies to a unit. And what's neat about this thing is you get to define that unit. I've seen them defined all kinds of different ways. A department, a shift, a work area, a production line, you name it, I've seen it. I've seen clericals, I've seen all kinds of stuff. So I've seen various kinds of shared work units. There's a reduction percentage, and that reduction percentage within the boundaries of the law of 20 to 40% is determined by the employer. And that's how that works. And then the employee receives a percentage of his or her unemployment benefits equal to the reduction percentage. So if we reduce the hours by 20%, we're going to pay 20% of the claimant's weekly benefit rate. And I'll show you in the next couple slides how that works and how it's an advantage to the employees. So what's the advantages to employees? Well, they will get more unemployment compensation benefits during the weeks of the reduced hours than they would be if they were eligible for under the regular UC requirements for the same hours. Again, I'll show that in the next two slides. If the employees have additional employment, let's say they're laid off from Serta Bedding, which is one of our shared work employers right now, and they have additional employment from Sheets Quick Shopper. The Sheets Quick Shopper hours don't affect the shared work unemployment compensation benefits that they're receiving. Next, there's no required mandatory work registration. Under our normal rules, if we were not in this pandemic, all claimants are required to register for work. All claimants are required to conduct work searches under normal circumstances. But claimants and claimant employees under the shared work program, both of those are waived even under the normal situation, even though right now they're waived due to the pandemic, but so they don't have those. So later on, which we're expecting sometime this year, the work registration and work search requirements to turn back on, our shared work claimant employees will be exempt from that. So let me show you an example. We have an employee, and by the way, these are pretty accurate examples because I've seen a lot of weekly benefit rates of about $400. The claimant's weekly benefit rate is reduced by 20%. We would pay $80, which is 20% of the weekly benefit rate before we make any deductions for anything else. And that's for child support or normally it's child support, and the other one normally is federal income tax. And so they would get $80 in unemployment compensation. Now, if the same employee would have his work hours reduced without shared work and have to report their gross wages, their wages would have to be reduced by almost 62% before they get any unemployment compensation benefits. So let me show you the next example why this works the way it does. This is a claimant who is receiving regular unemployment compensation, and that person's hours are again reduced by 20%. Weekly benefit rate is his gross wages are $800, makes the weekly benefit rate $400, which is 50% of the average gross weekly wage for this person. Under the unemployment law, we calculate a partial benefit credit, which is 30% of the weekly benefit rate. In this case, $120. But with the claimant working down 20%, going from 5 days of work to 4, the claimant will receive in gross earnings $640. Well, the claimant wouldn't be eligible because the weekly benefit rate of $400 plus the partial benefit credit of $120 equals $520. And if what he earned is more than that $520, they get no unemployment compensation. So in the prior slide, they get $80. In this slide, they get nothing. That's the big difference between shared work and non-shared work. So what's the plan look like? Well, the plan has to tell us about the effective unit or units covered by the plan. A plan can have more than one unit inside it. That's up to the employer, what that looks like. It has to tell us the number of full or part-time employees in that unit, so we know how many we're handling. What percentage of the employees in that unit could be laid off if we didn't approve the plan? That's one of the things we need to know so that we can figure out whether the shared work plan is of best interest, best role for them. We ask for the social security number and names of each of the employees in the affected unit. That's so that we can identify those claimants as shared work claimants in the unemployment compensation system, so that we can pay the benefits correctly. And we need the employer's unemployment compensation tax account number, which is that 2-digit followed by a hyphen followed by 5 digits. We need to know how the employers will notify the employees in the affected unit that we've approved the plan. Many times they get an email because they're working from home. Other times they're getting some other, many times there's in-person meetings. We're not real picky about that, but they need to know that they're getting involved in this. What's the usual weekly hours of the employees in the affected unit? We have some shared work groups where the usual weekly hours for that employee is not 40, but 37 and a half or 35. So we need to know that so that we can look at what that's going to be once we reduce the percentage as we show in the next bullet point. So again, the percentage has to be between 20 and 40%. So if we're reducing 40 hours work week by 20%, we're going to a 32-hour work week. We need to know what weeks that they're going to provide no work to us, no work at all. We have some employers that do winter and summer switchovers. They close the plant during Christmas and they close the plant during the 4th of July to change what they're making during the next 6 months. And so when that happens, we need to know about that. What's the first date they're planning to reduce the hours of the employees so that we know when it's going to occur? Number of hours that, number of weeks, how long is this plan going to go on? We've seen some go 52 weeks. Right now we're seeing some, they're going 52 and they're at the end of their 52nd week because we're now 52 weeks into this COVID period. And we're now starting to see new shared work plans for the same group of employees as they start a second year with us, because they're not sure if they're going to, how long it's going to be till they can get back to work again. And then any other information that we need. And the reason why we have that is sometimes we need to know if any of these people are not US citizens because we've got to deal with those issues and things like that. So that's what we need for the plans. Then there's a series of certifications, and the first one is the biggest one. The first two are really the biggest ones. The employer agrees not to hire new employees nor transfer employees to the affected unit during the plan period. Once we set a plan unit, that plan unit has to stay stable during that period of time so that they cannot bring new employees into them nor transfer employees out of that unit to that unit while the shared work plan is in progress. They also agree not to lay off the employees. We have seen companies all of a sudden lay off the people in the plan. Next minute, we know they're not getting any hours. And we ask what happens. Well, they laid them off. That immediately terminates the plan because what we're agreeing to here is to reduce the hours by the reduction percentage during the plan period. And that the people will all together work the same number of hours. When they lay off people that are in the plan during the plan period, then we terminate the plan because they're not agreeing to what they agreed to in the shared work plan. Again, they agree to maintain the health benefits under the same terms and conditions as if they were working full-time, and that they agree that this reduction is in lieu of layoffs. Again, we're trying to avoid layoffs because when you lay people off, then they go find work elsewhere. And if they're laying people off, then that makes the unemployment benefits, the charges to the unemployment system higher. Also, the employer agrees to furnish any reports we need to administer the plan. For most of the time, what we need from them is the biweekly claims report, which tells us how many hours these people worked every week. And we also need unemployment compensation applications for those people during that period of time. And then the employer agrees to follow any directives that we think necessary to implement the plan. We've done some things about telling the employers about what happens when there's holiday pay and things like that involved in the plan during a week, because those affect how we pay benefits during holiday weeks. And then and this is something we don't know what is in their law, but if there's certain things they have to do under other federal and state laws, that shared work plan is consistent with that under federal and state unemployment law. Next slide is, what are their responsibilities? Well, they need to distribute applications and cover letters to the employees, because we're going to take an unemployment compensation claim from them. And rather than having those people file unemployment compensation claims as they normally do through our internet system, we're going to have them complete applications, and we're going to process them in our shared work group. And that's to ensure that we can clearly identify those people as shared work claimants, and we know who they are. We ask them to collect those applications and send them to us. That way we can quickly process them and get them going and deal with some of the issues that we normally have with regular unemployment claimants, such as claimants having, again, are not US citizens, so we have to deal with that. We have some employees that may have worked in 2 states. We have to deal with those because we're using regular unemployment law to determine financial eligibility, and then we apply the shared work for the payment of the claims. So we need to know those things. The employer then files biweekly claims for the employees. The employees do not do any claims filing for themselves. The employer does that. And that's the big change between regular UC and shared work, is who does all the work. All the work is done by the HR office of the employer and not the claimant. And then they're required to communicate any changes to the terms of the employment to the department. So if somebody leaves, we've seen people quit, got fired, we need to know about these things so we can take them out of the program, because that's things that do happen from time to time. The employees have to meet our financial eligibility requirements. In other words, they have to have wages in 2 quarters. They have to have a high quarter in total wages that meet the financial eligibility requirements. There is some non-financial eligibility, such as they have to be able to available for work. Of course, being a shared work claimant, they are. And then they need to be aware that we do federal withholding at the weekly benefit rate can affect how much we pay them, because we withhold it at 10% of the weekly benefit rate right now, and 10% of a $400 payment is $40, because the weekly benefit rate's $40, and so they're only getting 80. Then the next minute we know they're only getting $40, and they get all upset at us. So that's what can affect the shared work plan there. Can they change their shared work plan? Well, yes, they can. An employer can modify the shared work plan whenever there's a change in the employer's circumstances. Percentages go up and down. We see that all the time. We see employees coming and going, employees leaving the program because they quit or were discharged. We see we've seen even the people that are the contact point for the shared work program for the employer even changed because that person's left. So yes, we need to know those, and that's how we do those with plan modifications. Finally, the employer can terminate the plan by giving us written notice, and that's before the employer says, okay, I think we're going to be going 15 weeks. They find, like at the end of the 10th week of the program, that they're ready to go back to work full time. Well, they can quickly, with just a simple termination notice, terminate the program, and everybody's working back to work, is back working again. How it affects their bottom line? Well, for contributory employers, we're going to charge them based upon the experience rating of that employer. So if we pay $80 worth of unemployment compensation benefits. For that claimant with a $400 weekly benefit rate, we're going to charge that employer $40 for the unemployment compensation benefits. For reimbursables, if we pay them, we pay $80 worth of unemployment compensation benefits, we're going to send, our tax services group's going to send that employer a bill for $80 for that employee. So that's how it affects their bottom line. So will it expect change their experience rating for the contributory employers? Probably it will, but that's better in many cases than having people laid off full time. They go to call them back and they're not either not around or they've moved to another state and they can't call them back because they are not available for work in this state any longer, and then they're being charged for them. So, and we've seen that happen consistently as well. So which employers will be charged? We charge the employers in the same ways we charge the regular unemployment compensation employees. So if the claimant has two employers in the base year and one is 60% charged and the shared work is 40% by happenstance, then we'll be charging the shared work employer 40% of the benefits and the other employer 60, and the non-shared work employer may request relief from charges, and he's certainly entitled to do that. So finally, out on our website is we apply right now through our unemployment compensation management system at UC, using our UC tax application to fill out the applications. We have an application also out on our shared work website if in case they can't. We encourage online applications. They're easier for us to process. Our shared work website has undergone a major rewrite in July that clearly gives them an outline of what the program's all about and how to apply, and all the information they need at uc.pa.gov/shared-work. And then our email address is sharedwork@pa.gov, and we handle all questions with a group of about 6 or 8 of us handling the emails and questions from the employers specifically. Well, that's my presentation. I'm sorry for having to stop in the middle there. So if you've got questions, I'm willing to answer any questions you might have. Thank you, Ashley.
No worries. Thanks, Al. So go ahead, if you have any questions, go ahead and use that chat function. I had a question. Can an employee work for another employer during the time when have their reduced hours?
Yes. So that's the example that I was giving you about. Let's say that your northern tier group is doing shared work as the shared work employer, and you work for Sheets Quick Shopper. You can work for Sheets Quick Shopper and still get shared work unemployment benefits, and we don't use the shared work, we don't use the wages from the Sheets Quick Shopper to determine the eligibility for the shared work benefits. So we exclude those wages completely during the period they're in the program. So that's another benefit to the employees.
Awesome. For most of us, we work with employers. What is like the top highlights we should be teaching our employers about this program?
Well, top highlight for me is right now that shared work can eliminate you having to lay off employees. Shared work is a better way of paying unemployment compensation benefits and avoids layoffs. We found that employers are finding that this way that they're finding it just eliminates having to lay off 2 or 3 or 4 of their employees and not have them around when things get too busy for them. So that's my biggest statement to them. This is a way to eliminate having to lay off people and not having them available when business gets picked up again.
Thank you. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay.
Is there any way that we can get a copy of the slides?
Sure. I'll
that I
send them.
can.
Ashley, I'll send them to you.
Perfect. And then I'll send them out to the staff.
Okay.
that
I
are
have your
registered.
email address, I believe, Ashley.
Yes.
You've moved over to pa.gov, right?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay. So I will find you on the gal and I will send you the slide. I'll send you the slides. I
Perfect.
can
Well,
do that today.
thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah. If you've got questions, if employers are interested in this and they want to talk to us directly, send something to sharedworkinpa.gov and we'll reach out to them. We've been doing that. The team, there's about 6 of us handling shared work claims right now, and the team of us will reach out and talk to the employers. We will talk them through the process. We've dealt with all kinds of questions regarding getting them on board. You name it, we've dealt with it. So including problems with getting their tax eligibility straightened out so they can apply. So we know where the ins and outs are. And if the employer is interested, the first step, if they're not sure what to do, send us an email at sharedwork@pa.gov and we'll reach out to have that employer. We'll reach out to that employer and help them get ready to start through the process, because we've done that for a large number of them, and that's how they find it. That way they get some little tender loving care, because this thing is not the same as regular unemployment compensation. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. I want to thank the group of you that are here today. I appreciate so much the opportunity to talk with you about my shared work program. Thank you.
Bye, Al. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.